Brigadier Lorne MacLaine Campbell, VC, DSO and AMP, bar OBE, TD was a British Army officer and a Scottish recipient of the Victoria Cross, the highest award for gallantry in the face of the enemy that can be awarded to British and Commonwealth forces. Early life. Lorne MacLaine Campbell was the eldest of three sons of Colonel Ian Maxwell Campbell and Hilda Mary Wade. He was schooled at the Dulwich College Preparatory School, and then at Dulwich College in South London between 1915 and 1921. Between 1921 and 1925 he attended Merton College, Oxford, where he was president of the Junior Common Room and of the Myrmidon Club, and graduated with a second-class degree in Literae Humanae Ors, military service. Campbell was commissioned as a second lieutenant into the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders on 23 September 1921. In August 1939, his unit, 8th Battalion, was mobilized for war service. During the Battle of France in May–June 1940, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Order for gallant leadership during the 51st Division's entrapment at St. Valery and Corks, where 2 battalions and the divisional commander were captured. At the Second Battle of El Alamein in late 1942, he received a bat to his DSO for his part in the capture of important objectives. In 1942 and 1943, he commanded 7th Battalion, Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders in North Africa, during which time he was awarded his VC, and in April 1943, Campbell became acting commander of the 153rd Infantry Brigade. He took command of 13th Infantry Brigade in May 1943, serving in Syria, Egypt, Sicily and Italy until September 1944. Within this period, for 8 days in April 1944, he was acting general officer commanding 5th Infantry Division, at the time serving in the Anzio beachhead in Italy. Campbell ended the war in the United States, Washington, D.C. as a brigadier with the British Army Staff. Victoria Cross. Campbell was a 40-years-old temporary lieutenant colonel in the 7th Battalion, the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, British Army, during the Second World War at Wadi Akarit in Tunisia. The citation in the London Gazette read, on 6 April 1943, in the attack upon the Wadi Akarit position, the task of breaking through the enemy minefield and anti-tank ditch to the east of the Rue Maina feature and of forming the initial bridgehead for a brigade of the 51st Highland Division was allotted to the battalion of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Campbell. The attack had to form up in complete darkness and had to traverse the main offshoot of the Wadi Akarit at an angle to the line of advance. In spite of heavy machine gun and shell fire in the early stages of the attack, Lieutenant Colonel Campbell successfully accomplished this difficult operation, captured at least 600 prisoners and led his battalion to its objective, having to cross an unswept portion of the enemy minefield in doing so. Later, upon reaching his objective, he found that the gap which had been blown by the Royal Engineers in the anti-tank ditch did not correspond with the vehicle lane which had been cleared in the minefield. Realizing the vital necessity of quickly establishing a gap for the passage of anti-tank guns, he took personal charge of this operation. It was now broad daylight, and, under very heavy machine gun fire and shell fire, he succeeded in making a personal reconnaissance and in conducting operations which led to the establishing of a vehicle gap. Throughout the day, Lieutenant Colonel Campbell held his position with his battalion in the face of extremely heavy and constant shell fire, which the enemy was able to bring to bear by direct observation. About 1,630 hours determined enemy counterattacks began to develop, accompanied by tank ranks. In this phase of the fighting, Lieutenant Colonel Campbell's personality dominated the battlefield by a display of valor and utter disregard for personal safety, which could not have been excelled. Realizing that it was imperative for the future success of the army plan to hold the bridgehead his battalion had captured, he inspired his men by his presence in the forefront of the battle, cheering them on and rallying them as he moved to those points where the fighting was heaviest. When his left forward company was forced to give ground, he went forward alone into a hail of fire and personally reorganized the position, remaining with the company until the attack at this point was held. As reinforcements arrived upon the scene, he was seen standing in the open directing the fight under close-range fire of enemy infantry, and he continued to do so although already painfully wounded in the neck by shell fire. It was not until the battle died down that he allowed his wound to be dressed. Even then, although in great pain, he refused to be evacuated, remaining with his battalion and continuing to inspire them by his presence on the field. Darkness fell with the Argylls still holding the positions, though many of its officers and men had become casualties. There is no doubt that but for Lieutenant Colonel Campbell's determination, splendid example of courage and disregard of pain, the bridgehead would have been lost. This officer's gallantry and magnificent leadership when his now tired men were charging the enemy with the bayonet and were fighting them at hand, grenade range, are worthy of the highest honor and can seldom have been surpassed in the long history of the Highland Brigade. Personal life. In December 1935 he married Amy Muriel Jordan. The couple had two sons, Alistair Lorne Campbell of Eards and Patrick Gordon Campbell. He is buried in Warriston Cemetery in Edinburgh in the upper northern section. His medals are on display at the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders Museum in Stirling Castle.